What was significant about these stories about Urfa, and what is the type of impact they had on you? You didn't write about anything else. You wrote about Urfa. There was so much around you, but you chose Urfa.
The reason I wrote about my family in Urfa is because I had always found it interesting that my family were not kicked out in 1915. They stayed and they survived and they lived amongst their Turkish friends in harmony. And I said, well, how did they do that? How did they continue? How did they stand at the side of the road and watch 1.5 million people come past, walking towards their death? And they survived. So I started digging more into the story. Like I had my mother's grandmother's stories, my great-grandmother's stories, and I thought, well, how did they do it? And I discovered from picking out the nuggets and then calling this one in Boston and this one in Argentina, that it's because she was such an amazing dressmaker. She was sewing for the wives of the men who persecuted them. And they said, don't touch my Ermeni dressmaker. I need her. So not only did they help her and her family to survive, she also had up to one point a dozen girls working for her, hiding in the house. She had a very big house, and they basically were under lock and key. They never went out. They stayed there. They did the sewing, the embroidery and everything. And she would help save orphans and give them a job and give them a place to live. And she made the clothes. And eventually one of her sisters said, after 1918, it's time to go at some point. But it still took them 2 years. First of all, they got rid of the girls. They sent the girls out to here, there, and the other. Some of them to get married in America and everything. Once they had finished the girls, they moved out themselves. But again, with the help of Turkish friends. They came, they gave her 2 wagons. So in one wagon, the family left. But previous to that, they put everything in a wagon and helped them to transport all of their stuff to Aleppo. So they actually left Urfa in 1922, and they rebuilt their lives in Aleppo.
And then?
After that, they lived in Aleppo for 10 or 15 years, and once they had established themselves, my grandfather, who had by that time married my grandmother, moved to Cyprus, and they followed him.